Hey buddy, Crow back again, and the reason I'm making this video is because fairly recently there was a pretty big update for Pinball FX Early Access. Now Zen has been calling this the June update, and I guess technically that's true because they did release it on June 30th. There were a bunch of tables that were added, as well as some new features that were added in this update. Plus there was actually another feature that was added prior to that, but technically after the May update, because I actually hadn't seen it before, so I'll talk about that stuff as well that was added in between the May and the June update, because it's all new to me. It was stuff that I just really recently seen, because I finally had a chance to sit down and play Pinball FX for a few hours, and I was noticing all this stuff that was just brand new to me. So I'll just go over all that stuff and give you my thoughts on it. Now, I may have mentioned this in the last Pinball FX video I made, but I do have the Pinball Pass subscription, and it's not because I paid for it, it's because the folks at Zen Studio had given me a code for a year's subscription of it. Now, granted, I still would prefer to actually buy and own the tables, but you know, I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth. And I still might actually go ahead and buy the tables myself, just so I could have them in case that Pinball Pass does run out in the future. But let's start with what I think is the biggest addition in this most recent update, and that's the addition of the Machine, Bride of Pinbot, a table that hadn't been in Pinball FX previously. Now, it was in the Pinball Arcade, but I played the Bride of Pinbot for a while, and I honestly can say I much prefer it with these new Pinball FX physics. The problem with the Pinball Arcade version is it was just a little bit too slow and floaty, and as a result it was way too easy, and I kind of didn't like playing it in Pinball Arcade anymore because the games would go on forever and ever and ever. And now playing it again in Pinball FX with these physics, it's a lot more challenging, and it's a lot more satisfying to play in my mind. Plus now there's also the addition of those enhancements. Now, I know a lot of people don't like playing with the enhancements on, but I think it's a nice feature to add if you want to play something a little bit different. I mean, this is a video game. I can see doing stuff in the game that you couldn't really do in real life, like having an animated Bride of Pinbot on the playfield, walking around, acting out what's happening in the game itself. And also you've got the head of Pinbot back there in the corner on his little playfield. You've got shuttle launches, and you've got escape pods. And I really think the escape pods are pretty neat on the table, because that represents how many balls you have left to play in the game. So you don't need to worry about, you know, waiting for that information to pop up on the screen. It's just, you can just see it there visually on the table. But I don't want to get too in-depth on the table itself, because I'm waiting for Pinball FX to actually be released, and I kind of want to go through every single table in Pinball FX one at a time and kind of rank them as I go along. Be a nice long project to work on, I suppose, because and also I've done the same thing for Pinball FX 2 and Pinball FX 3, although when I did it for Pinball FX 3 I didn't go back and redo the ones that were in Pinball FX 2. I don't think I did, but I think I will do this for the new Pinball FX. Also, I actually learned something I didn't know with the Bride of Pinbot, and it's because of the little factoids that they show on the screen while the camera's flying around the table while it's waiting for you to start a game. I had no idea that there was this Easter egg in the Bride of Pinbot, where if you start a game but leave the ball in the launcher and hold the left flipper for 45 seconds and then switch and hold the right flipper for 45 seconds, you'll hear a little beep. And then what you do is you kind of play out Old MacDonald Had a Farm with the flippers, and the machine responds with E-I-E-I-O until eventually it just starts singing the cow part. Moo, 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 moo. Moo, 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 moo. I always find it fascinating when there's Easter eggs in video games, but it's even more fascinating when it's in pinball machines, I think. Now, as well as the Bride of Pinbot being added into Pinball FX, 3 tables from Pinball FX 3 were also re-added as well, and they were the 3 tables that were included in Williams Volume 6. So now, Funhouse, Space Station, and Dr. Dude are all available in Pinball FX as well, and I tried them all. They were all pretty much the same as they were in Pinball FX 3, except now you have the features that are available in the new Pinball FX, such as, earning the collectibles for certain scores, and also the different types of challenges you get in that game as well. I mean, with these 4 tables, I kind of tested them all with enhancements on, enhancements off, with ray tracing on and ray tracing off. And I will say that my preferred way of playing these tables still at the moment is with the enhancements off and the ray tracing off, because that really improves the frame rate of the game and just plays a whole lot smoother. But I will say that with these tables, I don't know about the other tables still, but with these tables, with ray tracing on, it seems a lot more playable. I mean, obviously there's the dip in the frame rate, but the frame rate still remains around 60 frames per second. But to me, it's still not as much as an improvement to where I'd want to play with it on and sacrifice the frame rate. And, playing with the enhancements on is fun from time to time as well, but sometimes they can get distracting. Sometimes some of those enhancements get in the way of your gameplay, especially with something like Space Station, where the astronaut just kind of flies in front of your face, and I think in Bride of Pinbot and Space Station, space shuttles kind of fly in front of your face as well. But you could look at that as an added challenge if you want to as well. But I think most of the people who watch these videos prefer to have the enhancements off. They just want to try and get as true of a life as an experience as they can to real pinball. But in my eyes, it's fun to just see what you could do in a video game version of that table as well. Now, before I go any further, I want to talk about some glitches and bugs that I've discovered in this game. Now, I'm not actively looking for bugs. I know there's a whole bunch of people playing this game that are reporting bugs left, right, things that I would never even notice. But I gotta say, with these tables that were added in there, some of the bugs are really noticeable, and some of them can be game breaking, and that's not really good. But again, this is an early access, so gotta cut them some slack. Gotta figure that they're gonna fix this stuff before it goes live. But I believe in a previous video I made mention of playing Safecracker and the ball ejecting kind of really crazy sometimes. Because with Bride of Pinbot and Dr. Dude, I've been noticing it happening more and more, and it makes me think that maybe this is a bigger issue than I thought, and it's a problem that's happening in more tables that I just haven't seen. But it's really bad with Dr. Dude, because if you hit that Gift of Gab shot, when the ball ejects, it doesn't go to the rail like it's supposed to. The ball oftentimes will just fly right off the table, right past your flippers, like up in the air. You have no chance to hit it, and it just counts it as a lost ball, and you just instantly lose a ball. And so every time you go for that shot, you have to count it like you've lost the ball, because it seemed like 80% of the time that ball was gone. So that's a major problem, and to me, it makes Dr. Dude totally unplayable until it's fixed. But I also did run across this really bizarre glitch in the Bride of Pinbot. I was actually doing really good. I was up to 2 billion and some change in the game, and I kept, hitting those balls back up, and I kept spinning the big wheel. But some weird glitch happened, and it just caused this really distorted background noise, just constant noise in the background. And the machine didn't know where the balls were, and it would just trigger, the ball find mechanism where it hits all the solenoids trying to free loose wherever the ball is, until eventually it would free one of the balls back, and I'd just keep playing and then shoot it back up there, and the same thing would happen again. And the whole time it's just, this constant background noise. I couldn't get it to resolve itself until I tilted the machine, which forced it to release all the balls and just reset the whole thing. That was a really weird bug that I hadn't seen before, but it also kind of ruined my game. The one last bug that I've been noticing happening is when you're playing the game with the enhancements off, but then just occasionally there's some enhancement that just kind of creeps in there and it just catches you off guard. Now, I've noticed this the most in Funhouse so far, with some sparks shooting out. That wouldn't happen in the real machine, but particularly when you get an extra ball, because that extra ball animation still happens, and it seems really weird to have this pinball floating around. But that's not as game breaking as the other stuff. It's an oddball distraction though. All right, so I think we can move on and start talking about the features that were new to me, and I think we can start with the events. Now, this is something that was available prior to the last update, but I think it was something that was added in after the May update, so in between the May update and the June update, events became available. And what these basically are tournaments created by Zen Studios. Now, what Zen used to do in Pinball FX 3 was they used to just create their own tournaments and add them in alongside everybody else's tournaments, but now they've got their own separate section. And what I found interesting is that some of these are actually just limited to the people with Pinball Pass. So they're actually giving people an extra reason to get Pinball Pass, and I wonder if they're going to do that with some other features in the future as well. But yeah, speaking of the user-made tournaments, I went ahead and I looked through that. I was never really big into tournaments in Pinball FX 3, but I just kind of checked these out just to see what was available. I just created my own tournament that anybody could just go in and play just to see what it was like. I set it up for, of course, my favorite table in the game, the Getaway. I set it up so you had 2 tries, you have 2 weeks to play it, and it's open to everybody. And the number of participants is unlimited. You could also set it up where it's password protected. Only certain people can join in that have the password. But if you want to go ahead and try this tournament, I'm sure you could beat my score because I really messed up in the 2 games that I played. I think there's kind of a glitch though, because even though I set it up for 2 games, I just kept going in and playing it again and again and again. But even though I had gotten a really good score, it didn't count it because it wasn't one of my first 2 games. So I think it's kind of messed up that even if you've used up your 2 tries, it just lets you keep going in and trying it again and again, even though it's not going to count those scores. It should tell you that, hey, you've already used up your 2 attempts. You can't play this again. I think that's something that needs to be fixed, and it will have to be fixed before the game goes live, I think. One thing I totally forgot to mention was that they actually expanded the area in which you can add your collectibles. They basically added a whole new tournament area where you could place your posters and figures or whatever, but they also added a section in there that you could place your trophies, specifically for trophies and tournaments. So I thought that was pretty cool. And finally, the last thing that they added in that I had no idea was coming back was achievements. That was the one thing I noticed that was missing in Pinball FX from Pinball FX 3 was the achievements, because I used to like to go in and keep trying to play the tables again and again and again till I got the achievement. So I was thinking in this new Pinball FX, the collectibles were actually just the substitute for the achievements. You just keep playing the tables again and again and again, adding up your scores until you finally get all the collectibles. And I was thinking, like, well, that doesn't really take any skill. If you're really bad at the game, you could just keep playing again and again and again, and eventually you just will get everything. But now the achievements are back, so now there's at least one specific task you have to do per table in order to get the achievement. And the nice thing is that when you get that achievement, you also get a collectible for that achievement. Now, I've only done it so far on the Williams tables, but that collectible you get for beating the achievement is just a replica of the back box that you could put on a shelf somewhere. So it's nice that you get something to decorate your room with as well for getting those achievements. And that's all I pretty much wanted to cover in this video. I really haven't been playing Pinball FX all that frequently, but I think with some of these new additions like the events and the return of the achievements, I'll be coming back to this more frequently to try my hands at the new events and to try and get all the achievements and collectibles. But yeah, I'm just gonna cut it here. Thanks for watching. See you next time.